Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to start making the mattress and the pillows for our little bed. Right now I'm just measuring the bed to make sure I get the right size. And I'm sorry about the glare off the ruler. And this is going to run into another part because I'm working on something that I think will make the bed look really cute when we're done, but it's taking me a little bit, and that will be coming up in the next video, which I hope to have up at least by the weekend. I'd like to have it up on Friday, but I'm kind of busy again. So now I'm just marking out on this piece of foam board exactly the size I need my mattress to be. Just double checking to make sure I have everything right, because what is it they say, measure twice, cut once? So I'm just trying to get everything lined up so it's really straight. And I love the Tim Holtz ruler for that, but I need to get a new one because I can't hardly read this one anymore. Just making double sure that I have everything right, because I don't want to have to cut this again. And I'm using scrap foam board that I had left over. I don't really want to cut into a brand new sheet just for this. So now I've got my lines marked out even, and I'll be using my box cutter to cut it with. And I start, and I think maybe I'd better get a ruler. So now I've grabbed my metal ruler. Now I'm going to make my cuts. Start up in the corner and just cut it out. And this was the dollar store foam board, and it's not a great quality of foam board, but I figured just for the mattress base that it would work just fine. Trying to get one of those little hard pieces. They get little pieces of styrofoam in them, and I was trying to get that out. And as usual, I missed a spot. So now I've got the mattress part, the base for our bed, and as you're going to see as this progresses, it's a little longer than the bed, but that's okay. It's not going to be seen when the covers are on. So I decided that I wanted to use some polar fleece. I've got a chunk of it. I've got no use for it. It does stretch a little bit, which kind of helps in this process. And I decided I was going to use my Gorilla Wood glue for this. I've been watching Julie Warren, and she's like, it's really good. And it is. It works well, but I'm not really seeing that much difference between that and tacky glue, so I guess it's just a preference, or you could use PVA glue if you wanted. If you hear any background noises, it's probably the cats, and the furnace is running. It is cold here again today. It's been cold and wet for days. We went from the 90s back to the 60s and 50s with a lot of wind and a lot of rain, and so the cat's, Ash especially, wants out, but it's so wet and cold he doesn't need to, so he's being kind of a little pain in the butt. And it looks like we're supposed to have rain through the weekend. I work, so I guess it's not really a big deal. And so now I'm just laying the polar fleece down and trying to center my mattress piece over the top. So I have a little bit left on each edge when I turn it over. So I'm just going to get a piece of cardstock and still working with the Gorilla Glue to see how much I really like using it for this. And again, my personal preference for this is tacky glue. The Gorilla Glue is thick, but I thought the tacky glue just grabbed a little quicker. And that may be because my tacky glue is getting really old and it seems to have thickened up even a little more. See, here comes Ash right now. And he's going to jump over here on the arm of the couch, because that's where I'm sitting to do this, to record the voiceover. And nope, he left. So now I'm just taking the edges of the polar fleece and I'm turning it over and I'm trying to push it down onto the piece of foam board. And it is, but it isn't wanting to stick. So I'm going to just flip it up and stand it on end here for a little bit, hoping that the glue will take. And it seems to be holding. And now I'm just going to cut off that excess. And I would advise you wait until yours dries. But you know me, I get in a hurry. And it all worked out fine. It stuck. And I'm just bringing it down to the edge of the foam board. I don't want it going over the bottom because the polar fleece is thick. So I'm just pushing it down on there. I decided to speed this up because honestly it's just me gluing around the edges, getting the rest of the polar fleece glued down. Mr. Mew, my project manager, is here. He was taking a nap, but I think he just got up. It's almost time for what we call his nibble. He gets it right before I go to work, and I've got about an hour before I have to go to work, so he always thinks it's time early, of course. He likes to nibble. So again, just making sure that I get everything stuck down and then trimming off the extra. Once again, I didn't have quite enough glue. I don't like to waste, so I tend to not put as much glue on the piece, like whatever I'm using, like the cardstock. He's got some little bit of his cat food left. He's munching on that. So there, I'm just showing you that I just wanted it to go over that edge, and then I'm trying it on the bed, and it's a good fit. And then I'm going to be gluing a couple more pieces of the polar fleece onto the top of the mattress because I want it more rounded and I want it thicker because it's not very thick. And I don't need to put a lot of glue on, so I'll just be dotting some here and there. Because as you'll see in a couple minutes, I kind of changed my mind on the mattress base. So I'm just trying to get it out around the edges. And believe me, the glue is sticking to the polar fleece. As I said, I didn't need a lot, so And I like working with polar fleece for this because it does have a little bit of stretch, and it does the glue, it sticks with the glue really well. So I'm going to be putting on my first piece, and that should just cover the top of the mattress when I get it all on. I'm just stretching it a little bit to make it fit. And then I'm going to be putting this third piece on. It's just cut a little smaller than the piece on top of it. And I was kind of going for that kind of rounded look, as I said. So I'm just putting some glue on here. Just little bits here and there. And again, keep in mind, if you touch your glue to the polar fleece, your glue bottle is probably going to want to stick to it. Just a few little dots in the middle, just to make sure it stays in place. And that is Corky howling, because Corky also wants out. Cap off that glue because it's getting old, and I think it's getting a little thicker, and it really likes to clog up. So now I'm just going to lay this over the top of the other piece, and as you'll see with the stretch, it kind of got as big as the other piece anyway. But that won't matter as long as I don't have any ripples like that in it. I just want it to lay down nice and flat. There we go. So yeah, it's kind of, I've left just that little edge around there. And like I said, in a minute you'll see that I changed my mind on this. I'm just fitting it back on the bed, making sure everything's okay. And at this point, it's not sticking out too far beyond the end of the bed. In Grandma's house, the rooms are very, very small. So it looks like it's probably a queen size bed by the time I get it fitted and in there. Okay, so what I've done now is I have decided that I need another piece of the foam board because it just didn't set up high enough for me. So you will see me, I'm going to be starting to glue the fabric on, or no, wait, no, I'm putting on more polar fleece. I thought that's what I was doing. But I used a light colored fabric, and yeah. So anyway, I'm just putting this over the whole thing and gluing it down onto that other piece of foam board. And I did speed this up because it's basically the same exact thing I did before. I'm just pinching those corners so I can get them nice and tight, because I'm going to do the technique where I cut around the corner, and then with polar fleece and stuff, it's really easy just to glue it together. So now I'm just cutting off those corners, just making sure they fit. Cutting any excess I have off the bottom. And of course it's getting stuck to the scissors and the glue and me. So I'm just filling that in because that corner gapped when I cut it. But you can just push it right together and you don't even notice that it's glued. And just making sure everything is glued down like it should be. And this is, I put it back on the bed, and this is where I realized that it's sticking over the end just a little bit. So now it's time to do my mattress, and I've chosen the same lightweight tan colored material I use for the sheets on Grandma's bed. So I'm just spreading glue along the edges so I can fold my fabric over. And I'm starting on the short ends. You could start on the longer ends or the longer sides, it doesn't really matter. The biggest problem with this fabric is it frays very easily. So from time to time you'll see me cutting off little frayed threads that have come out of it. And I'm getting stuck to everything. And I'm just doing both the ends first. And I'm using the tacky glue for this. So I'm just spreading on a good amount because I want this fabric to stick. And just folding it over. I'm not pulling really tight, but I am pulling tight enough that I don't have any gaps or anything where it's pulling over the end there. See, I'm taking that thread out of there because it got stuck in the glue. So now I'm just trying to figure out how do I want to do these sides because I want them to look neat. I don't want a lot of bulk on there, because it always looks funny if you have a lot of bulk and your mattress starts sticking up like on one end or in one corner. So first I'm thinking of wrapping it like a package, but I will abandon this idea. I'm trying to push it down, see if I can get it to come up, not have those little pointy ends on it. Not working for me. And then here I've got wrinkles if I do that. And I was like, oh, maybe that won't be too bad. The corner's not too bad. It's not going to show. But I realized the ones up toward the top of the bed might show just a little bit because this will be the undersheet. The one that goes over the mattress. So I go ahead and I start gluing it down this way. And I pull it up, but then I realize eventually that I have too much fabric and I'm not going to get a nice neat turn. And there I flip my glue, see. So I'm trying to put the glue to the inside of that and pull it down, and I'm not liking it. So I keep pushing forward with this, so even though I'm not liking the results I'm getting, it's just, I'm trying to scrape that up off my cutting mat. Use what I can. When I go to turn this side, it's like I'm really not liking this because it's just really not turning like I want it to. And so I'm still experimenting here, trying to figure out what to do when the solution was pretty easy. So I'm okay with that. I thought that was okay. I finally thought I had it there, but then I'm realizing I've got to put a lot of glue on there, and I don't like the way it's going, and so yeah, it's just not working for me. So I take it loose and I cut off a little bit of the end, and I've got to get some more glue out. So now I decide that I'm going to take and I'm going to cut into the corners, and I'm going to cut that piece off that's going to be on the, going next to the foam board on the bottom. And I'm just, what I'm doing is I'm just cutting another slit, and as you can see I left myself a tab, and then I'm going to fold those tabs over, and then I'm just going to cut the corners off so that they don't poke out. And I'm sped this up because it's just, you know, it's just getting it glued down, and so it looks halfway nice and halfway even. And I still wasn't real happy with my corners, but with this fabric I did not want to go ahead and do the type of corners I did when I was putting the polar fleece on. So now I'm just gluing those little tabs down. I know I'm off camera here, Just want to make sure I get them glued down good. Chopping my corners. Then I'm going to go back in with my glue, spread it all over, and I'm going to fold up that side. And we have a mattress, and it doesn't look too bad. The corners aren't too bad. The one, it would be on your right hand side as you're looking at it. It's kind of pointy, but yeah, it's going to work because I won't show. So now it's time to glue the mattress onto the bed. And I'm just trying to get my tacky glue to come out. And I'm going to be gluing up along the headboard on that board that sits there. And then I'll be gluing across on the slats that go underneath the bed. I'm just dotting some glue on there because I'm making sure to put a lot on the top and bottom. Once it's on there, I want it to stay. So I'm making sure I get a lot of glue on the bottom down here too, like I got on the top. Make sure everything is good and glued down. So now I'm just going to put the mattress on, and I'm just pushing it over so it's centered on the bed, so everything looks right and even. And there we have it. So now I'm working on the pillows, and what I did was I just cut 2 rectangles out of the fabric to match the bed. I'm probably going to be putting pillowcases on, so I'm just laying out a line of glue along the edge. And believe me, I would rather sew this, but I don't have my sewing machine set up. I've been cleaning and organizing and trying to sort out some stuff I don't want, and so right now my sewing machine is not set up, but I would much prefer that. So I'm just gluing down the sides, and I'm having trouble with this fabric because it frays. It wants to really stick to the toothpick with the glue on it. Yeah, see, I'm having trouble. It's really getting sticky. The tacky glue is getting sticky, setting up. So it's just enough to do that, and I'm gluing down both sides, and I'm leaving a little bit at the top, and now I'm just trying to get it turned so that it's nice and even. No wrinkles. Corky is now saying hello again. And sometimes when he mouths like that, it does sound like hello. It's pretty cute. So I had a little wrinkle there in the corner, and I had some little where the fabric had frayed, and I'm just cutting that loose and making sure my corner is nice and pressing down my seams. And believe me, I'm not a big fan of the glue method. I finally got it to work for me. So there's the other one, and I'll be gluing those. Also, I'll be clipping the curves. I don't know if you can, or the corners. That one I've already turned, and this one I'm going to turn with you. And what I've done is I clipped the bottom corners, making sure not to clip through where I had it glued, because then it would have just came open and been a disaster. And I know you can't really see me turning it here, but I'm trying to make sure that I don't pull the fabric too tight so that I fray it out, or that I get it all messed up. Just making sure I'm getting everything turned right. And it took me a little while turning the other one also, and I'm just sticking a paintbrush in there, and like I said, I'm sorry you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to make sure I've got those corners nice so they're not dented in, or they're not, poking out too far, and being careful not to poke my paintbrush handle through where I've glued. So all I had was cotton balls to stuff this, and I know we are not going to be able to see this part very well because I'm really trying to make sure I'm getting them down in there and into the corners. Cotton balls are not ideal because they tend to bunch up, and you tend to end up with a rather lumpy pillow if you're not careful. And so I'm using the paintbrush handle to poke that down in there and just trying to get it smoothed out and evened out. So I have the least amount of lumps and bumps, and now I've got it filled, and I'm just kind of poking it down in, and I don't show it, but the next thing I will be doing is turning those ends to the inside once I get it like I want it, and I think I want it a little more firm, but I don't want to add too much of the cotton because I don't want a big bump on the end of my pillow. So I'm just poking it down in with my fingers, and then I will be turning and gluing the edge, and I will come back when I get that done because it can be very tricky. This is why I like sewing. Gluing, when you get to that part, for me is a struggle, and I'm still just trying to even that stuff out. And as I said, cotton is not ideal. So then I decide I want a little bit more in there, and I think at the end I almost overstuffed it. And so, yeah, it's almost up to the top, which made turning the edges in a little more difficult also. So I'm doing that, and I'm just going to grab my glue, and I'm going to turn those top edges to the inside, and then I'm going to glue. And that's what I did, and there's the pillow, but as you can see, it's kind of lumpy and bumpy. Okay, so I wanted to update you on the farmhouse. This is the floor in the hallway and the upstairs, and I chose to use coffee stir sticks and make it a narrower floor to make it look older, and I think it looks pretty good. Anyway, we're going to leave this video here, and I will see you hopefully Friday or Saturday with the conclusion of dressing the bed. I hope everyone has a great day, and I want to thank you all for being here and for joining me. Bye-bye.